Hello, everyone. It's very nearly the end. We have one session later tonight. Beatrice Galilee is reading the bedtime story on Instagram, but this is sort of the last get-together. Before I introduce tonight's speakers, I'm going to unmute everyone because I would just like to take the opportunity to ask for a round of applause for Rosie, who has been a partner in crime on this project since the beginning of April, and it has not always been easy, and it's been, you know, we've had ups and downs in terms of our mental health, I think, in this whole endeavour, and we've been there for each other all the time, and it just nothing like it would have happened without her. So we have 55 people. A round of applause for Rosie, please.
Hey! Thank you.
Now, my huge pleasure to be able to introduce as our kind of final speakers, our friends Vylder and Inge Vinck, who are kind of speaking from Ghent. There is a title for this session, but it has been mutating. And I think last time I heard it was on Boredom, Peripheries, and so on. But Jan was threatening that it might change in the interim between me opening my mouth and him opening his. So Jan, what's the title?
I'm unmuted.
No, you're there. You're there.
The title could be about this, about that, and so on.
Okay.
It's a very old title we used for decades already by now.
And then we'll speak about boredom, periphery, and so on.
Thank you so much, guys, for making time for this. And we're just thrilled that we've sneaked you in at the very last moment. Over to you. If people have questions or comments, just dump them in the chat box, or just let us know your name in the chat box, and we will we'll give you the microphone kind of at the end. Inge, Jan, thank you.
But just one practical question: how long do we have? And is there a talk after? That's something that.
There are no talks after. You can go on for but another 100 days if you feel so inclined.
Okay.
We've got the expensive Zoom account. Don't worry, we're not cutting out after 40 minutes.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So we share screen, isn't it? That was desktop. That's how it goes. And here we are. Do you see everything?
We see the desktop. We see quite a lot. Yeah, we see all the bar at the bottom as well. Okay, there we go. That looks good.
But that looks good. You don't see the little screen of. Okay, cool.
Okay, first of all, Alice and Rosie, we want to thank you for your patience, because I think we have been postponing at least twice, maybe 3 times, I don't know. So finally, we are happy that we can come over and say something in a period that is maybe not like the nicest period or the most logic periods of our life, of everyone, I would say. I don't know if everyone has been hearing the music that we have been playing before, but it's music that we have been choosing because we like it very much at first. That was also the question of Alice, to choose music that we like. But it's also music that is for us coming together with the title of this evening, the boredom, periphery, and so on. As music has a certain repetition. It's music that we know because it's like music of young artists, Belgian artists, music artists. It's Ruben Machtelings, Joachim Badenhorst, Hilmar Jensen, and Nathan Wouters. It's the LP Flock, and you have been hearing the piece McMurdo. We like the music of Ruben Machtelings very much. We became friends also with him. We are even making a project for him. But we especially like his music also because it's not only about the music, it's also about the LPs he's making. He has his own label, which is called Aspen Edition. And he's very much related also to, and that's the LP. The cover that you see here on the screen is his LP from the music Flock. And we cannot go further. Yeah. It's the work of Ante Timmermans that you see on the cover of the LP. And the inside is also the work of Ante Timmermans, which brings us to another friend of us, an artist, who is also connected to boredom. He's using in his art's work a lot of words and items that are inspiring us, or ideas that are somehow confronting also with normal life, and I think with everyone's life. And you see here like homo nonsense. Nonsense means, I don't know, nothing, no mean. Constante nonsense. Yeah, I think you all, in your life, you often think about like, what's my life? It's nonsense. Or this, Le Gardien de la Nuit, that's the gardener of the boredom. Yes. So it comes very close all of a sudden also to what we want to talk about, or what we are busy with, or what we are thinking about. Here you see the drawing of the LP. And then we brauchen meer dada. That's then also Ante. We need like more things that comes like this, dada or haha.
What it's a little bit about with the word boredom and this introduction with Ante is that Ante also in his works, he picks up those kind of loaded emotions. I would not call it emotions, but elements. And he works around it. But I mean, you know, we are here in a lecture series on architecture, and we are professional, and we have, of course, a very professional discourse every day. And this very professional discourse has even its professional slang. Let's admit we use all kind of typology, you know. That's all what we talk about constantly. And what we wanted to do today, and as Inge introduced here, Ante Timmermans, is also to go in the periphery of things. I mean, I believe this is in our interest, at least in our ambition. I would not call it ambition, let's say in our interest in our work, very important. And we brauchen meer dada. Doesn't have to be explained. Huh? Well, okay, so far.
During the lockdown, all of a sudden, we should have had a book launch of a book we have been making called Verveling or Boredom. We had the opportunity to make this book with the Jonathan May and Johannes Berry of MAC.
Gallery magazine.
Gallery magazine. MAC?
Yeah, MAC.
Yeah. They invited us to make their first book. They had already a website with several artists, but then they invited us to make the first book. And we wanted to do something about drawings we were busy with. Drawings we call ourselves Verveling. And the title is Verveling is boredom. And then we do like a wordplay in Dutch, verveling, and veel is a lot of. And then verveling is like the change of things. And we make in that book drawings in Excel. I think you all know Excel. That's not a tool that you use to make drawings, but we
this
just
is
did it.
Pure product placement.
Yeah. But yeah, well, we will come later on this. We're all also like busy on Instagram. Also, we do, Jan and me personally, but also with the office. And during the lockdown, I received the book and I was going through it, and I discovered all of a sudden like that our book was talking about home, whatever home. But then I saw like in the small, in the
Address.
in the address, I saw like normal, bad, good, neutral. And I was like, well, that's maybe how we could feel us today, being home, being busy with boredom, although we never had like that feeling of boredom, but anyway, there was like a lot to do but boredom. And then I was posting like, how are you feeling? Because all of a sudden I saw something more in what we have been doing in our own book.
It's curious to see that this kind of very utilitarian instrument like Excel that's developed throughout decades also, you can, of course, write and calculate in, and then you can apply styles and so on. And this kind of very mathematically thing is associating itself with, what is it, bad, good, what's all there? I can't read it. Neutral, normal, and so on. It's very fascinating to see that this kind of useless, only useful thing seems to have emotions also. So I'd like very much that Inge added, how are you feeling? And by that illustrating by an Excel sheet, responding to that, or give you the opportunity to respond to that. So anyway, this is one of the next 250 slides. We will not stay with all of them that long, but this is kind of like what we bring to the table today. We call boredom and periphery and so on, because again, we want to escape in this last lecture a little bit towards once more presenting our universe of our practice. But maybe by this, we might present another part of the universe of our practice, the main things that are going around in an orbital way, that are hovering around. And maybe as we picked up here, this kind of Instagram, we are all on, I know, and generally, I think it's incredible. And you could say social media and Instagram, is it something that you should add to your idea of practice or your idea as an architect or in your life anyway? I mean, many times I just say, let's quit it. But on the other hand, it became to us a kind of not telling what we are doing nicely to our friends and whatever, but it became a kind of like of catalog, a kind of like of collection of things that we meet every day. And as it grows till a certain amount, I think we together have more than 1,000 of those things we post, it started to become, of course, also an instrument. And I'd like to relate it to a book of Christopher Vinck, an artist. It's called Atlas der Bewegingen. It's an atlas of movements. And I discovered, or I met him in the Two Poesie Zomers 2001, like 20 years almost ago. And his contribution as the artist to the poetry summer, in which poets and artists were combined in a kind of curatorial show in the West Flanders area of Watou, a really beautiful moment. Christophe Vinck, he made this kind of reports of walks, in which on one hand, he just make notes every other step he makes, or every other minute he walks, or whatever, and he just catalogs the things he is walking into. And you can see it, it's even with seconds like mentioned, and it as I mean, all what he sees is treated as equal information. And he made this nice book. It's one of the books he made on it. Next to it, he made also beautiful drawings of all what he met and all what he sees and all what he finds at those moments. And
these are the notes that he made, like to come to the text, I would say.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that, of course, the book also on one hand gives you information on what exactly happened, but then if you, as we showed, the images of the written out notes and the images of the drawing notes, like those, you could say, as such they become beauty. And that's a little bit what we almost only can say tonight here. We are not advocating everyone to go to Instagram, but on the other hand, I think somehow it can become also a way like this Christopher Vinck reports on a daily issue. And here you have some snapshots we took quickly today of our own Instagram pages, in which we also just in an equal way, like Christopher Vinck does, almost notice everything that happens around us. And sometimes it's mixed, and I think especially in Inge's case, well, I have to admit in mine also, with drawings we make, drawings in the periphery of the typically drawings you make as an architect. But it connects, it brings, and that's the beauty, I believe, of this page, is that it brings like this squares who make everything equally important or unimportant as you wish. And that's something that is for us now, talking about periphery or talking about and so on. The beauty of the periphery and the beauty of the and so on is to us today a little bit locked in this Instagram pages, of which we, one and another day we ask, should we not stop with it? And the other day we say, yeah, but it became our own poor memory along what we see as an architect. And of course, we have to admit that, as I said before, we all have our, let's say, professional, academical, more, let's say, objective way to talk about architecture, but maybe also we should admit more and more how architects are influenced by those things that in fact do not fit in this real discourse, especially those days as we discover our discourse are challenged by the circumstances the world is turning into. And you could say you might arrive even to other ways, systematic ways of thinking to conquer the adventures, I would call it, instead of problems we are facing. But then still we believe that the collection of the ephemeral periphery might be still our main I wouldn't say inspiration, but our main mirror into the field as architects, into the way as we should work as architects. So we switch now here to a kind of overview of those images. And well, I think many of you might know them by this. Avoid to go on Instagram because it's really poisoning you. But on the other hand, once you run it, it also could be a nice thing.
I think it's also about observations, not only on what we discover in life, but just in our everyday life, but then also like observations of what we do, we ourselves, of what is in our interests.
Mm-hmm.
No?
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that also it is, you will not be surprised if I say that we are highly in making books and working on publications, not to become world famous, not at all, but because, and I think you can confirm that the way we like to make those things often has to do also with a kind of, let's say, partly self-criticism on what we're doing, but also the format or the way we do that is very important. So also on these Instagram pages, someone at our office is working to make a book together with a editing house called AJDVIV, Art Paper Editions of Jurgen Malfait, to bring all, you will not believe it, but he wants to bring all the posts he's ever done into a kind of book, as a kind of reference book on this kind of equal daily observations we collect in this project of Instagram. And in that sense, I like that very much, because maybe in the field of the architecture realm of making books and making publications and making reflections, it could be just that book that you can put aside on the corner of your table amongst all the others very interesting books, but just as a kind of way to escape a moment. So here you see some more snap continuous, let's say, sequences of as you can find them. And it's all about everything. Like, for example, this one, you just walk around the street and there is a message, if you have problems, you can call this number. I really, and then you connect it to other things. But let's say we have 280 slides, but we just want to show those things. So this is, I think, one of our first things is the collection in the periphery of things, and not only collect them to ourselves. I could have added to this slideshow images of old boxes that I've opened here at home a couple of weeks ago, in which I found back, I forgot about them, maps, really full maps, full one after the other of information we have been collecting ahead of Instagram time, just papers, things we found on street, images, and so on. And I believe by this we really, this is a little bit, let's say, also our realm of thinking, our realm of how to get to things. Yeah, well, I would say let's now swipe through those images, and you know, those things. That's something I found along the street where they were refurbishing a building, and they took away the whatever, I don't know anymore what was that actually at that point, but it seems that it has been connected in this way to the wall. And if I now would refer, I would like to avoid, but to one of the projects, which is this pavilion, which we called that it does not look good, makes that it looks good. Well, this came after we made it, but at the other hand, it's connected to this kind of beauty. Or for example, this next one also, if you see, it's just a moment by walking. I mean, I think actually, I don't know. No, it's very, very ahead of any confinement, and this is a nice one also. I think it's I think now 2 years ago. Yeah, you see, 2018. We were at Furkapas, Inge and I, together with Philippe Dujardin and Luc Deleu and Peter Swinnen at that time, as we were making this. Maybe you know this confession series in which Peter Swinnen confessed on the work of Luc Deleu done at the Furkapas at the dépendance of the Furka Hotel. And you are here, and what you see, there comes a kind of truck with a beautiful kind of mirroring metal. And what you see doing those guys, they are just pushing the breeze into the mountain. And you think like, what's this? This nature, what are you doing? And then you learn whilst talking with people, even not academics or historians, that, yeah, in fact, it's true. When we drive through the mountains, it's only because they pushed down parts of the mountains to be able to pass. Anyway, those images are constantly there. And for example, for the occasion of this lecture of tonight, we just connect this part now to a next part, which is Inge, you talk maybe 1 minute on it.
Yeah, I think those images is just about beauty also. It's like things that we see that we like very much, and sometimes there is no explanation why we are doing it. These are like the leftovers of a big drawing I was making, and all of a sudden, is it taking the mask? Yeah. All of a sudden I discovered that the leftovers of the pencils came very close to the drawing that I was making. So for me, all of a sudden, I was drawing a mountain, and all of a sudden, the drawing was on my table without doing anything, let's say, except of using my pencils. And yeah, it's just the beauty of that small part that you discover at that specific moment. I think that's, sorry.
You know, Inge, I like it that you say this word beauty, because today, as Alice also mentioned, that the title was changing throughout the day and maybe happening at this very moment. At the end, it's all about beauty somehow. We observe and we document the daily thing. And by documenting and observing it really constantly, the discovery of the beauty of it is, of course, key to say that's what we collect. Even I remembered, I think, documenting that bird which was fading away, which is, of course, on one hand, a awful thing to see, but on the other hand, if you look at it, how beautiful it can be at the same time. And I think what Inge pointing here, it's a pity, it's true. Inge asked me just in Dutch whether I added also the drawing. I should have done it to see that connection between those things. But you know, that's what, I mean, maybe the statement boredom is a little bit over exaggerated, because at the end, it's not that we're really bored with collecting those things. But boredom means to us meaning like, well, why should you collect those things? Is it not boring to collect them? Is it not unimportant to collect them? And that's why we stated them a little bit like boredom. It's like, for example, here, a constant documentation on how to sharpen your pencils, and then how you see that those pencils all got shorter, and then you collect more and more the leftover, let's say. And okay, maybe you might be bored by now by all those things we show you, but on the other hand, looking back to it and being able, because that's a nice thing about this evening, and maybe a little bit confronting for us both now, we don't talk about it normally. We just post it, and that's what happens. It's the first time we talk about those things, but look at this.
Yeah, but of course we don't post them just because of this. It's just like also because we all of a sudden sometimes we discover things. I am a mother, so I'm often in the kitchen, not only because I'm a mother, but also because I love to cook. And I was cutting like ham, but I was at the same time I was busy with the drawing. And I discovered that by cutting the ham, all of a sudden there was a relationship with the drawing that I was making. And yeah, there again, it's for me, it's about this beauty that you can make connections all of a sudden that are like at first maybe not visible. Making pie is sometimes also like about a drawing, I would say. Oil in a pan, and
this is actually, to say it in another way, not doing your dishes.
No, it's cooking.
Okay.
It's really cooking. Sorry, it's hot oil. But the beauty of how the oil is taking over the pepper was for me like, okay, it is something. It's about texture. It's about the drawing. It's just about enjoying what you see at that moment and sharing it. Flower that becomes a flower. And in English, it's then a nice word play.
Also in Dutch, bloem, bloem.
Yeah, also in Dutch, true. The same flower with another drawing. Yeah, I don't know if I can give an explanation. I think we come later on this back, but just the beauty of this.
Now. Yeah.
And the beauty of this has to do with this. It's a fence in Ghent at the Vylder, where we have been building like the studios for Le Ballet de la Baie and Lots, where we pass by quite often. And at a certain day, I passed by and I discovered that the fence, someone had been finding himself like doing something. Was it annoying himself? I don't know. But I discovered that someone tried to restore the fence with silver paper. And for me, it was just so beautiful because it was so delicate and done with dedication somehow. But you felt also like that maybe it was just because someone was sitting there eating his bread, and then he finished the bread, or she finished her bread, and then she just used her leftover paper to restore the fence. And yeah, we just like that. And then yeah, it becomes something very beautiful, almost an art piece. And then we come to the to the railing that we discovered at a certain moment at Villa Tugendhat in Brno, where Jan and we had the opportunity to visit one of the last moments before the restoration of the villa. And in the villa, of course, there's like a long history of the villa. I will not take the time to explain everything, but we had like a nice visit there. But we discovered also this restoration of the railing. At some point, the railing was damaged, and someone decided to restore it with silver tape. And this silver tape followed us like already for a long time, and we were very inspired by this.
One has to connect, in fact, an idea that what happened at the fence, as Inge pointed, and then the silver tape together. Those are those things like we document on Instagram, but before we hadn't Instagram, we document at all times. That those are the things that at a certain moment when you come to a, let's say, a real commission or a real situation in which you set out for yourself a way of thinking, all of a sudden out of the periphery, those things are entering, let's say, the professional way of thinking, and then things happen. You explain. So for example, for example, we were asked for a gallery in Antwerp to make objects, many objects we made, and what was interesting to us when we walked back to the railing of Tugendhat, I have to say, Villa Tugendhat has many other stories to tell, even more interesting than the real architectural appreciation we all have for it. I mean, in the frame of the European history. But then the point is that what you see here, that you discover, like in the fans, that there is a kind of beauty possible with everyday topics, everyday things. And this led to us to, at a certain moment, to present just a simple, you almost could say, a too simple table, which is a black metal which has been polished with diamond pieces. I mean, that's how it goes when you want to make a mirror out of black metal. And normally you lock it, like in Tugendhat's villa railing, with chrome, which is of course a very unecological project and so on. But we don't lock it with chrome. We just polish it with diamond, and you see the table above is one which has just have been revealed to the open air. But if you keep it for a while open to the open air, it starts to oxidate again. It starts to get rusty. And if I now go first back to this beautiful oil moment in cooking, or the flower moment as we've seen before, but also this one, and now I switch to the real use of the table. It means, of course, that when one has a party and you forget to clean the table, then later on the party will be the ever poor memory on the table. And some people know how to party, I have to say. But this is to us, like you could say, you can think in many ways about a side table, but this side table, of course, to us includes a lot of side stories, peripheral stories that make this table and takes it, at least we hope, and at least for us, to another end than a kind of functional or a kind of design way of doing it. And
what we like also about it is that the table all of a sudden becomes very personal, because every table in the end will be different. As you see here, we could like photograph like all the tables to the people that's at the people's homes, and we would discover like all new tables, and that's also.
Anyway, the next image is maybe not related to the topic of tonight, but maybe nice to add is that, as Inge said, we were there a couple of days before closing of restoration, and you're always scared, of course, because, you know, it's an architectural, let's say, ultimate building. So when they start to renovate it, you're not allowed anymore later on to get in. But anyway, they renovated in a very gentle way, I have to say, taking into account some, let's say, traces of history. And you can see here, in the book, the railing, the chrome has not been restored. So the traces that it had, that it received throughout decades, has been openly shown off today. So all congrats to the people who've done it. It's not in the frame of what we wanted to tell, but again,
but it made us happy.
It made us happy. But again, what it's about is that in, for example, this project, which we at that time really were in when architecten de Vylder Vinck taillieu was still in the air. And then it became a kind of like, say, side thinking on many other projects also, but also side thinking that we took as an occasion at many times to go on with it. And for example, this is, for example, let's say, changing an everyday product, everyday object, a pole, a building pole, as you know, by taping it, like in Mies van der Rohe's building, and see what a beauty it becomes. I do believe that this is part of our practice, and I do believe that fundamentally it should be part of any architectural thinking, or maybe it is part, but we don't admit it enough. That is that this kind of peripheral observations and thinking influences us in the way we do and we make things. And if we move on, then things happens very peripheral, I have to say, very without any mean, that we arrive at a certain moment in a art, I would not say gallery museum, a Kunsthal here in Belgium,
in Ghent, yeah.
operated by the nice collective 019. And well, they are opening a wall, and there is an old electricity line, and then they have to take it away. And somehow this electricity line is like contaminated by the wall itself. Bricks are still around, and they want to throw it away. And so sorry to say, then Inge and I, we look at it and we say, what a beauty. And then comes the tape again.
So yeah, we amused ourselves to tape it, and one day it will hang again at a place where it used to hang before, but in silver tape as a remembrance.
Okay, to finally stop with this huge Instagram reel we are inviting you in, or trying to seduce you to, these are those kind of things which are interesting. Look what this is. This is just a building site where someone, I guess, or we guess that someone wants to recuperate this to bring them home or whatever. They took it out of the building and put it aside. But look with us how this kind of balance between the glass plate, the way, and the window frame, and you cannot understand what's happening really. But if it would be an art piece, it would take probably a couple of months to get it into that balance. Not, I mean, physical balance, but balance of thinking also. As we collected today the things, this is, and now we change a little bit to the title of the book. We made Boredom on the Excel sheets, and maybe the last project ahead of that is we have been asked also in the realm of architecten de Vylder Vinck taillieu a couple of years ago by the New York gallery Friedman Benda to make a piece which is a homage to one or other architect. And having been traveled at that time many times to America and had the chance to visit some stuff, let's say it like this, some project of Frank Lloyd Wright. And I don't know if it's about reading or hearing or telling or whatever, but seemingly also one moment someone talking with Frank Lloyd Wright, saying how to explain or to go deeper into the idea of how he connected, like in Falling Waters, but also in many objects, this kind of shifting gestaltes, volumetries. And then he pointed at a certain moment saying, wow, you know, when you lay some books one upon the other in an interesting way, you easily get to something. And this is why we call this debate that as an homage to Frank Lloyd Wright. We went down to the place of our favorite cabinet maker, where always there are this kind of leftover plates along the wall. And then when you look at it and you just shift them a little bit more nicely than they drop them simply, then you get to something which we believe as a kind of beauty, and it's you see it when you arrive there, and just by shifting a little bit more, it's the beauty itself. So to us, this kind of boredom has to do maybe exactly not with boredom, but with being interesting in those things that are generally categorized as being boring, as being uninteresting, as being of no importance, as being, let's say, outside, and you don't look at it in a way of interest. Plates, let's say, organized or stapled or just positioned along a wall. And then all of a sudden we dare to say, let's call this a tribute to Frank Lloyd Wright. Let's call this a debate for Frank Lloyd Wright. So, I mean, this all comes together with the silver tape story and everything as a kind of, let's say, humble attempt tonight to explain a little bit what the contradictions are about boredom. At the end, it's not boring at all, and it's fundamentally about beauty, but maybe it's much more fundamental than just only beauty. And those nice, that's how we did also this lecture. The beauty of those colors refer back again just to the beauty of the colors of the Excel exercises and sheets we have been making. And maybe it's now the moment to turn it into that, because as we said, Gallery Magazine, Jonathan and Johannes gave us that opportunity. You know, we were making those things already much longer, but then you get this platform and of course you go much deeper in it. So with the stuff you've been making, you just move on and you just move on further on. And those are first exercise that has been made by Excel. And again, you don't, this is not where Excel is made for, not at all. But it's incredible to understand, like in the Instagram image of Inge, Excel has feelings. And Excel also seems to be able to guide us or to give us this platform to do much more than just calculating. And those are the first attempts into it. And then comes the book. But before that, we have to explain a little history in Excel.
Yeah, we all use Excel, so also we do. And we use it to make plannings and cost calculations and other things. And yeah, it happens that we just want to make them a little bit more nicer when we work in it. So we use like often a lot of colors, but also, yeah, that's maybe something that we try then to do. We make it somehow graphical also, the plannings and the cost calculations. And that's then our fun in the way of working on maybe not so nice things about at that moment in architecture. So that's just like to keep us, I don't know how to explain it in English, but to keep us
but
it's happy somehow with what we are doing at that moment.
What I like the way you talk about is that it's true. These are the most boring parts of our job. I mean, I don't think everyone ever talks in any lecture or something like this tonight about the real job, about the cost calculations, about the maintenance of budgets, about the maintenance of plannings and all this kind. Sorry to say, but we all rush out to freshly delivered things to say how and here and there. And then for a little bit professionals, of course, we comment our colleagues. But behind that, there is a whole, let's say, reality. And it's like Inge says, we like to make it a little bit more nicer, but I would even say saying a little more nicer is an undervalue of what we do. Because if you look at it, at least to us, it's not about nicer, but sometimes things organize themselves differently.
Yeah, it's to make things clear, of course, but it's also like also for ourselves to make things clear and more logic and more readable somehow. But then it's then also that we are confronted with ourselves and that we discover, like, if you look at it like with another eye, that not with the administrative eye at that moment, that you can also enjoy those pages and those papers, just like you see them, and as you see them and as you discover them. And that's where we discovered that maybe there is more into Excel. This is another moment that we used also Excel, not in the way that we should use Excel or could, or should use. At a certain moment, we were invited to be part of a competition of the AJDVIV.
The Rotterdam Architecture Biennale.
The Dutch Architecture, for the Dutch Architecture Institutes. We were invited to be part of a competition for an exhibition. To be honest, we didn't have many time to be part, but we said yes. But then in the end, we didn't find the time to work on it, and we didn't hand in anything. But then they called us and they said like, yeah, but we really want to see you, and we really want to see your proposal. And so we jumped into the train, and then with nothing, to be honest, and we started to work.
Let's be totally open on it. We just announced a couple of days before the presentation that we would not show up. That's not nice to do. Okay, I agree. But then they were that furious that they say, no, you can't make it, you have to come. But as we were we didn't have time, we were not able to prepare anything. So we nicely, gently say, okay, we will show up and so on. And so the morning we left to Rotterdam, still we didn't have anything. And one has to admit, capacity to draw in AutoCAD was not really anymore in our fingers nor in our mind.
No, it's just like as simple as it is. We don't have AutoCAD on our computers.
Even so that, but even if we would have it, I would not be able to do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't dare to say that, for me at least, but anyway. But so yeah, we had to find out how we could like make drawings and
how we could even
represent somehow
how we could develop an idea. We didn't have an idea.
We didn't have an idea, but yeah, well, so we started like to open the Excel sheet, and in the space there are like a lot of columns. So we started like to draw the columns of the space itself. And then we continued, and we started like Excel is kind of repetition also. So we started to just repeat the columns as we see them in the building, and we just start to play with it. And then we find out that finally in the Excel, we could find a way out of having a new idea with columns and also having a beautiful drawing all of a sudden out of it.
Yeah, that's we to say. Of course, I think many of you might recognize the plan of Jo Koenens and Dutch Architecture Institute, Nederlands Architectuur Institute, the above part. And we stepped in a train here in Ghent, then Antwerp, then Rotterdam. We had like 2 hours and a half, something to do like this. And the nice thing is, of course, that you're limited in time when you have to develop or to design something. You have to think about a concept, but we were also limited in media. We were limited in the way to bring it to the table. Mm-hmm. So the fact maybe that at that time we were only able to draw it in Excel was a limit on one hand, but on the other hand, also, of course, that thing that guided us to making a plan, which is, I would say, in this drawing, totally over-exaggerated, but to show that maybe by adding into the space virtual or let's say fake columns, we could make a kind of scenery. And it's totally exaggerated. Nice thing or not nice thing at the same time was that we were successful in doing that. We brought it like with 5 slides to the presentation. And then they even got more angry on us because they said, but this is what we should do. But you know, as you announced to not send in your proposal ahead, we had to disqualify you for this job. So you make us twice angry. First, you don't show up. And secondly, you show up with something we would love to do with you, but at the end, we can't do it anymore right now.
But okay. Look, we still can go on with the drawings.
So this complexity, nice. Which is an over-exaggerating, leads to the next one, which is also an over-exaggerating, but which is, let's say, the result of an ongoing, endless exaggeration, let's say, adventure into Excel. And what changed with the Boredom is that at first, I have to say, maybe I don't know how many, 20, 30, maybe 40, I drew myself when I was on trains and airplanes and I got bored with things and I started to exercise it. But as those guys of Gallery magazine, Jonathan and Johannes, invite us into us, we changed gear and we started at the office to really spend time on it for a couple of months to find out what we all could do with it. One collaborator, Shervin Sheikhreza, she was like finding a kind of yoga, a kind of meditation in it at a certain point to get along with it. And then finally, well, we could show them all, but you better have a look into the book.
But it was nice also like to discover all the possibilities in Excel, because there are like really many possibilities and it's infinite, to be honest. And all of a sudden, yeah, this is about boredom, drawing all those lines, but then at the same time enjoying it, doing it. And as Jan says, like for Shervin, it was almost like yoga somehow. So
I don't want to say tonight that we are unprofessional, as it looks like we like to say that our work is driven by this kind of things. But we have to admit it is. On the other hand, of course, we are very professional in the sense that we believe that with our work we can participate in the discourse of architecture. But maybe on the occasion of tonight, we'd like to emphasize a little bit the importance for us of those kind of things. And as I said, it's like with the story of the silver tape. You all of a sudden bring things that have nothing to do with what you're on together, and they seemingly deeply have to do something with it. Also with his Excel drawings, we cannot point exactly where it happens or where it would be related to the real time frame of the daily profession of an architect. But then at a certain moment it comes back. And here you see the nice magazine. You should go yourself through it. And what I like about it at the end also is that you could say, what am I with this book? But you know, we all know in our shelves we have a lot of books which are on one part the professional topic books we love to have close to us and we like to reread many times. But then there is another category of books that we just love with us. We still not can explain exactly what it is about or why we love them, but very often they come next to this pile of important books as equally important, but impossible to really qualify them why they are important. I hope, or at least that's a small ambition, this book might be part of that pile of books.
And then it might seem just like being just the drawings, but we also even managed to have like chapters in it, like in a real book. And that's what I think is also nice. All of a sudden we had like, I don't know how many drawings, but 200, 300 drawings, I don't know. We started to order them, and then you start to discover that you can put them in the chapters even of Excel. And then you rediscover again the Excel where you have been drawing so many drawings in. So that's really nice to discover that all of a sudden you rediscover the tool that you have been using so abusively almost.
No, obsessively.
Obsessively. That all of a sudden you rediscover it yourself again. And coming from like those Excel drawings, we also started to bring it back to our projects, and we started to really draw in it and to make project drawings in it. So here you see like the inside of Le Balesté de la Baie, project Kapelleveld, a housing project Frians, and Leefdal. And you see also like some other projects. That's a fold in the book of those drawings, which we have been making also like just for fun. But it was nice to discover that you can even really draw in it. And I enjoyed really making these drawings because, as I said before, I had the impression Excel has no limits. So you can really go very far in it. And the project didn't stop here. At a certain moment, we were invited also by 019 Gallery in Ghent, which is related to the Kunsthal. They are making flags in Ghent, and we were invited already for a long time also to produce a flag for them, or to make or to draw a flag for them, but we never came to that. But then all of a sudden, making those drawings and making this book of the Excel drawings, we find out that this was the moment to also come back on this flag issue, and we, together with 019, we started to produce flags of our Excel drawings. The flags were ready at the moment of the lockdown. They arrived in front of the SMAC. There was one, the Museum in Ghent of Contemporary Art. So we have these flags, which we think are now just beautiful.
Yes, this is, you know, I mean, it was quite a moment that throughout lockdown, so the book was made before, we still should have a proper presentation of it. I mean, Jonathan and Johannes organized something in Chicago at the time, but then, although I was in America, it was already at remote. I couldn't get down to Chicago anymore. And so it didn't happen to that presentation at all. But then even throughout this moment of lockdown confinement, the guys of 019, Valentin Houtans and Thomas Lotens, they have this big project of flags throughout the city, which are changing constantly. And then in a kind of no moment, they just made flags out of it. And it was nice to go through the city. I mean,
yeah, and during the lockdown, like a lot of you, we have been walking a lot, and then those flags were hanging a little bit everywhere, and it was like just like nice to see them. So we started to photograph them. So we have another collection of the waving flags, the dancing flags, the moving flags, which all of a sudden in the lockdown became something joyful and something nice, looking forward to see them and how they are moving in the winds. And
it was nice at that time because, you know, it was a lockdown, and then at a certain moment you were back allowed to go out for sports and to walk individually and so on. So you discover city in another way because you're always walking alone or something like this. But then you saw like people gathering around. They were looking at it. It could have been flags of others. I mean, artists, real artists, we are not artists. But at the end, as they were very prominent around the city, like this one, 55 square meters tall, you saw that people were gathering around it and looking at it and wondering what it was about. That's maybe the best attitude. What is it exactly? So, but, you know, this is all the thing that we love to explore in the periphery, like with the silver tape. The silver tape thing, it comes like constantly back on all kind of things. This Excel drawing things, which in the beginning is of no mean. What the hell are you doing drawing in Excel? And then it starts to become a whole story, like an endless story of things starting to repeat it. And for example, we should have added some images. One collaborator or a friend, use it as a
tablecloth.
As a cloth. I mean, yeah. It's so interesting to see those things happening and to see those things happening. And then next thing, here we are back in Excel, the universe of Excel. We are today working in close collaboration with Jonas Temmermans and Arthur Hageman, and with Max Castelloth as one of the protagonists in the project of the office. We are working at making a new website of our office. We could guess that we would arrive there. This website will be based on an Excel sheet. On one hand, the website will be a kind of like slightly interactive website in which you also can post things on our works and so on. But on the other hand, and it will be also like a kind of open source almost. You will be into our server to get the things out of it. But on the other hand, of course, the graphical thing out of it has to do with what we have been exploring into the periphery of Excel drawing. So we will find back quite a lot of things that we have discovered throughout making it. And it becomes, in that sense, a kind like of identity of the way we like to approach the things. As Inge showed you the drawings we made in Excel of our projects, somehow this all will get into a relation with each other. So allow us to talk about this tonight, because it's part of this idea of let's say, the peripheral amusement. Let's call it a kind of amusement around. We could change the title again to Boredom, Beauty, and Amusement, as being kind of a triptych of 3 words that have to do something. This boredom delivers a lot of amusement, and at the end, it's a lot about beauty. At least we think this might be not only an interesting web page, but also a beautiful web page in a certain way.
Yeah, and it's just like, I think we just don't want to make like a normal website.
We call it normal in another way. For us, it's normal because
but it has a certain complexity also that we like in that sense.
If talking about normal, this is a handmade planning. Yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago, on the planning on the ATH calendar and how to merge it with the calendar of the office.
Handmade Excel drawing.
Handmade Excel drawing. And then today in a project, in a Holland project, we just were debating with 3 of our collaborators a kind of new facade options, and we make this. And let's toggle between both. Planning, not an Excel, facade, and so on. And maybe I don't know, Rosie and Alice, if we still have more time on, but this is, we always organize our lectures that we can escape at a certain moment. It could be now, but we could move on a little bit with the and so on also. But if we would conclude today at this moment, kind of like talk we have been giving with pleasure for you, as you might hear our enthusiasm at a certain moment, a little bit overacting almost. But this is exactly, Gordon Matta Clark also in architectural thinking is of course one of the reference of everyone. But what stays the most to us is this saying, which has been on the wall of the CCA in Montreal. Here is what we have to offer you: confusion guided by a clear sense of purpose. Alice, Rosie, tell us what to do.
Keep going. We're loving it. Please, we'll have an encore.
Okay, another hour.
No, it's not another hour. It's just a few more things to conclude a little bit, because we wanted to avoid also that you think we are getting totally crazy. But the thing is that, like with the Excel book, this Excel thinking also, of course, has to do, and that's the so on part maybe of the presentation. You will not be surprised if we are constantly next to our daily practice job, interested in how to think about things by drawing, by referring by drawing, by reflecting, sorry, by drawing. And getting back to the Instagram, it has been posted by Inge before. And you see, we loved, and maybe we not exactly can frame why we loved doing that at that time so much, but still, as we were preparing this lecture of tonight, we were also remembering the nice moment at Bats Place Gallery in London, there down with you guys, and in which we did something which on one hand is, I would say, almost the project in which we combine things of the extents of our interest. On one hand, the idea of interfering into space. As you can see here, this gallery has kind of strange features, maybe very common to you in London everywhere, but this kind of volumes that are interfering into the volume of a space. As such, no comment, they are there and they are accepted and even loved. And then we started in this gallery to add more of these objects, of which you could say, maybe we understand what they are about, like this is a kind of chimney connection, but then there are other things that probably just hide techniques and sewage and all kind of things you don't want to know, mices and whatever. And we added, as Marie invited us, we added to the gallery some objects of that kind. But then from the other extents of our interests, conceptually, we just could have added the volumetries, but then there is this just interest to always get along somewhere, somehow, with some drawings. And I think we show this tonight as a kind of extra to what we have been trying to explain a little bit before, just to say like, well, at the end, whatever we've said before, it's maybe also about the love of making drawings. And that's the same thing with the Excel thing. However, we push it to realms of web pages or to other ideas of redrawing our real work. At the end, the pleasure of this drawing, we have to admit, next to the pleasure of making things real, because at the end, that's what architecture is about, to make them done. This is very important to us, this kind of ability to not dream away, but to take distance. I mean, there is this nice, and I liked it to have included the book into it with a nice title, Distance and Engagement, on the work of Günter Vogt. It's one of the most nicest things, distance and engagement. How you engage into things, but also how you can give distance to that. And maybe this leads us to, let's say, this is kind of waving out extra on what we've foreseen to talk about. First of all, this everyday theater collection we presented at Bat's Place. But then secondly, a project we are right on right now, and that is...
Yeah, it's also like those drawings, we make them because we like to draw, but it's also a fascination of us of how we can deal, like Jan is saying, like with the space, but also with the drawing, how we can go along with it. And it's because we just do it, and sometimes it's going along with the project, and sometimes it's like not going along with the project. But here, when I am seeing like those drawings, I'm like pointing to Jan, we should have added also like a picture of our table that we are sitting at, because doing these drawings, and all of a sudden we also started to color the leg of our table, which comes then together again with the volumes that we have been
because
aiding.
It's this nice Martin van Severen aluminium one we colored. We colored in this one.
Colors.
Let's maybe, we are now in a part and so on, which is maybe less connected to the boredom, though I think, again, boredom and amusement and beauty are fundamentally part of this and so on series. And today we are happy to show you as a kind of preview a project for a drawing we have been recently finishing at our office at Les Ballets de la Baie, because the situation is that due to the lockdown, due to the distances we have to respect with working, we arrived to have us in a temporary phase, maybe for longer than a year, at Les Ballets de la Baie. It's a nice coincidence that we arrived back in a project of us. But so in the main theater space, I mean the production space, we have been working like with 6 people together to make a drawing on a project. We are actually on building site right now in the city of Charleroi, together with the nice people of Agua Architects in Brussels. We are now in a building phase. We don't show images, but the point is that there will be an exhibition opening soon in Lille, in Rijssel, in France, which is a curatorial exhibition of HBAT from Lille, together with Arc-en-Rêve of Bordeaux. And the main theme of the exhibition is Les usages du monde. And for that exhibition, we created a kind of drawing, which is 16.8 meters long, 22 frames on Steinbach paper. And what we do in this drawing, we bring together the idea of the meaning of the project we are working on into the larger section of the city. And so the drawing positions the project in the understanding of the city and the city life. But on the other hand, also the drawing is a project on itself, namely a kind of reflection with many people around on how we could think about something which we are making ourselves at the very moment, which is going on itself, and how to represent it, and even by its representation, comment it. So it might help us also, as we will have a kind of further on development of the project, in how to really a little bit, I would not say redesign, but give the project not yet its next future into the city. And what you see here are drawings by different hands. If we could walk one moment back into the drawing of the main part of the building. And we have it in front here. Let's go back to the collection. Here it is. And this is only like 1/4 of the drawing, but you can see here in the middle, the building where it's really about. And that one has been drawn in a kind of almost classical way of the viewpoint perspective, shifting from page to page, I have to say. But this is the core part of the building, of the drawing. But then we wave out with different collaborators, different interests in how to represent the city. And then if we move on, then you can see that the real craftsmanship of the architectural drawing evolves to a kind of free approach, a free understanding about how the city could be. And you see here on the right side, for example, that this got almost more, let's say, figurative instead of drawing in a perspective way. And if we move on, you will see that we didn't have the time to collect them all together, but look at this and remember the first images of Ante Timmermans in the beginning of our presentation on how at a certain moment, like in Ante's work also, he seems to caption in his drawings the real world, the daily world, in, I would not say figurative way, but in a mental way, and how also here the city, the real city around in this drawing turns out to be a kind of mental representation of the city, including the beautiful tower of the Belfort. And this brings us back to as I said already, I referred to Ante's work, but I refer again to the book of Christopher Vinck, in which we just scroll through some pages of that book, which is about, let's say, the drawing as a storytelling of a universe, of a world. And
yeah, this drawing even shows almost the nature where he was walking, and because it becomes like, yes, yeah, maybe exactly. Less this, the nature, you feel the nature in the drawing because it's like you see like a tree or a leaf or something, but that's, I think that's then the beautiness of this writing downs, that it becomes something more deep.
Here we are back at Antes, Le Gardien
de la Nuit.
Wir brauchen mehr Dada. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. Just the wonderful kind of last conclusion to this 100 days, and a presentation of kind of very characteristic generosity, I think, on your part. If people have questions, then just quickly pitch me your name in the chat box, and I'll come to you. I mean, you were very scrupulous in not really referring to any other architecture in the entire course of the presentation, and so I feel maybe slightly mean asking the following question. But it does come to mind that there are certain architects for whom there is this very close relationship between drawing and architecture. I guess I think particularly of a building like Leverance's flower kiosk, where the concrete joints become a form of drawing, or the electricity cables become a kind of drawing. I think in the Smithson's work or in Marias's work, there's a similar sort of feeling for line and this very ambiguous relationship always between what's drawn and what's built. Would you situate yourself within that family of architects? Does that feel a comfortable set of relationships?
Well, to be honest, we also had like a couple of pictures of projects where we could talk about the drawing in projects, but we skipped them as we thought like we didn't want to talk about projects. We did want to talk about the periphery and the other things that are in our interest. But of course, yes, in a lot of our projects, the drawing is also prominent and is there. If you are talking about electricity lines that become like a drawing, that's of course also the things where we are busy. It's if he joins, that's in the project that was also drawn in the Excel sheet, like the blue, the house, there the joints are marked again in blue and redesigned on plasterwall. So of course, yes, in our project the drawing is also like
well,
and not just because of the drawing, but also because it becomes part of the project.
Yes.
Let's not reduce our reality to Instagram, but if you would look to the Instagram of the office, we started to post really architectural drawings. I think one of the recent posts on that is a kind of railing Inge has been drawing in 1-to-1 scale for a building project, a housing project. The thing is that also in our new, let's say, new realm of the recent office that we reestablished, one could say, we are back on. We have been on track, but even more on track in, let's say, getting back to this drawings, even I don't want to be nostalgic, but handmade drawings that are about the real act of making the things, the one-to-one scale drawing that we all need to get projects done. I think there is an architectural realm, a kind of tension today in the, I would say, in the world we're living, and in which you have to raise many questions about the urge of the architectural frame on one hand, but on the other hand, we still, we should not be scared about wanting to give things form. Even the urge is there, we want to give things form. And I feel at this moment with the team, but also Inge and I, that we are back, or not back, we never have been way of it, but that we bring back to the front when we talk about the urge, the whole debate is right on today, what it's about, climate change, everything. We urgently have to be on it, and it will change our profession, definitely. That still we love to make, maybe even more than before, drawings on this kind of realm of craftsmanship, on this kind of realm of how things at the end come together, whatever urge they are part of.
And I sense a sort of, I mean, I guess in the way that it functions in the Leverance example I just gave, that there's this impulse to draw is also a strategy for drawing material into the architectural project which might otherwise be extraneous. You know, the silver tape, which would, you know, ordinarily be thought of as something that was superfluous to the building, through the act of drawing, using it in a graphic way, it becomes drawn into the project. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, but sometimes also in a project, the drawing is all of a sudden there. Like in the project of Ledenberg, which is like the service center, we had problems with the concrete, and there we couldn't redo or or we didn't want to redo them, the concrete. But then we had to deal with all those traces of the bad concrete. And there we decided to paint it like in red. So all of a sudden, the concrete, so the project itself becomes like the drawing. And then we started also to draw like other things, but then also like the fire line, which is in red. And all of a sudden, things started to come together without, it didn't have any purpose as such, but all of a sudden it was there, and then we started to play with it. And that's also like the way our drawings somehow at some moments starts to be something, like the Excel drawings, for example.
Inge, Jan, thank you very, very much indeed. You're a fantastic closing act for us. And thank you everybody I can see lots of people in the audience who've been very loyal supporters of this program. Some have spoken in the program, and some have been just regular members of the audience. Yeah, Rosie and I are going to take a long holiday in September, but we're going to then endeavour to come back. We're probably doing more online things, but in a rather different way. I think we're talking about maybe thinking in terms of series of thematically structured seasons, maybe of a month or 2 months long, rather than this crazy hodgepodge of the 100-day studio. But unquestionably, this has been an incredible experience and privilege to have kind of watched over 300 contributions kind of over the past 100 days. So thank you, everybody.
I just wanted to say to the Architecture Foundation, it's not the first time you host us. I thank you very much for it. I think what is the Architecture Foundation about, and Alice, if I can be a little bit personal to you, you always think that architects are crazy, but I think what the Architecture Foundation has done today with the 100 days is as crazy as many architects are. I congratulate you with that, being part of the team of architects in that sense. Thank you.